Good morning, children, and welcome once again to this part of the revision video class for class 5 subject science. Now, we have already finished the first semester portion and we are through the revision now. In the previous two videos, you had seen a revision of chapter 1 and chapter 3. Now it's time to move on to the next chapter for revision. So today we are going to do revision with chapter 4, that is pollination. As you already know, this chapter has already been taught and we'll just like to recapitulate what we had done earlier. So to start with, you all know that flower is the most attractive part of the plant. It's colorful, scented and attractive. But do we remember that it is the reproductive part of the plant too? It is the flower which changes into the fruit and the fruit bears the seeds. And this seed is capable of growing into a new plant. So reproduction takes place through seeds. Just to recapitulate, a flower consists of 4 whorls or 4 parts. And what are those? Those are calyx, corolla, androecium and gynoecium. Once again, just to look at the flower, I have taken a typical flower of an hibiscus once again. So I have just drawn a flower of hibiscus where I have labeled the different parts. Now to start with, the flower is attached to the branches of the plant by a thin stalk called the pedicel. This is the pedicel. Now the swollen part of the pedicel is called thalamus. So at some places you will find that it is written as receptacle. That is the old version. And above that there are green leafy structures, that is the calyx, and the units are these are actually the sepals. The unit is called the sepals. This is the sepal. So sepal is the unit of a calyx. And then the red portion that you see, that is the colorful part, that is the petal. The petal are now the units of a corolla. It is generally large and showy. Then we have got the blue color that you see, those are actually the male part of the flower, that is the androecium. And they may be, the units are called the stamens. Each stamen has got a thin filament. It is a thread-like filament that is called the filament, and on the top it bears a bilobed structure called anther. And this anther actually has pollen grains in it. And these pollen grains are responsible for pollination that we are going to see just after this. The fourth whorl is the gynoecium, and each unit is called pistil. There may be cluster of pistils or singly it can grow. A pistil consists of 3 parts. The top part is the sticky part called the stigma. The long slender part that you see, thin long slender type tube, that is called the style. And then we have got a swollen base that is called the ovary. Within the ovary there are ovules, and these are the female sex cells. It consists of the female sex cells. So just to recapitulate, flower, it is the reproductive. It is the reproductive part. It is the reproductive part of a plant. It consists of first the calyx, and the units are sepals. And what is the function of the sepals? It protects the flower during its bud stage. These sepals they are 4 to 5 in numbers. Next whorl or the next part is the corolla, and each unit is the petal. Generally the petals are the red color that I have shown, that is large and showy, and it attracts the insects for pollination. Then we have got androecium. Androecium is also the male part of the flower, and the units are called stamens. So these are the this stamen actually is the male unit of the plant. And the fourth is the gynoecium. Gynoecium, it consists of pistils. Pistil, and the pistil has got three parts, that is the stigma, style, and the ovary. So all these are the whorls of the plant. Now some flower may have all the four whorls. So those flowers are called complete flowers, or we can also say they are bisexual flowers. The bisexual flowers have both male and the female reproductive part. Best example is again hibiscus. Then there are some flowers or few flowers that have only male reproductive part or the female reproductive part. Those flowers are called unisexual flowers. There are many flowers, example of course cucumber, papaya, these are unisexual flowers. Even pumpkin, these are unisexual flowers. Now we are going to talk about the process that is involved for the formation of a fruit. Two processes are involved, that is pollination and fertilization. Now let's talk about first now pollination. Now children, let's see what is meant by pollination. Now pollination is the transfer of the pollen grains from the anther of the stamens to the stigma of the pistil by agents like wind, water, birds and insects is called pollination. Now one thing you should remember that these pollen grains are the male sex cells. So if it is a pollen grain like this, within that pollen grain we have got the male gametes. So male gametes are the male sex cells. Okay. So once again, pollination is the transfer of pollen grains from the anther of the stamen to the stigma of the pistil. This is called by agents like wind, water, birds and insects is called pollination. Now this pollination can be self-pollination or cross-pollination. So I have just defined it once again, that is for self-pollination, it is the transfer of the pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of the same flower or another flower but on the same plant. This is called a self-pollination. And second type of pollination is cross-pollination. Now what is cross-pollination? It is the transfer of pollen grains from the anther of one flower to the stigma of another flower born on different plant, not on the same plant but on different plant but of the same species. That means pollen grains from the hibiscus flower will pollinate with the they will go to the stigma of another hibiscus plant, maybe of another plant. So this is about cross pollination. So just it is a short chapter where we have revised the parts of the flower and the first process towards formation of the fruit, that is pollination, and the two types of pollinations involved here. Now children, it's a very short chapter, and please read the chapter, and especially the vocabulary that is given at the back of the lesson you should know, that may be asked in the form of one word answers. So here I see at the end of the chapter we have got a few words where it can be asked in the form of vocabularies like the stalk of the flower, it's the pedicel, the long slender stalk of the stamen, that is called filament, the uppermost swollen part of the pedicel, that is the thalamus, the female part of the flower, pistil, the swollen base of the pistil, that is the ovary, the male part of the flower, that is the stamen. Like that, few more one words can be made from the chapter, within the chapter. I hope you all have understood it. So I'm just going to send a small revision. The answers will also be given there. Please go through it, and if you have any doubt, we can clear during the online interactive classes. Till then, have a nice time and take care. Thank you.